Merle Haggard had a verse out of a song said, "If God doesn't live in Colorado, at least it's where he spends most of his time." There is no better way, I would argue, to see Colorado than on a bicycle or perhaps a horse.
If any idiot will ride across Iowa in July, they surely will ride across Colorado in June.
It's this very mystical sort of experience that I don't know if I'm describing it the right way, but I think until you've done it yourself, you probably can't really understand it.
Just the sense of accomplishing it.
It's a badge of honor when you've done this ride.
It lets you know that you can do more than you think you can do.
It is a test of one's physical well-being, but it's a test of one's spirit as well. You can walk away a different person.
It's just this incredible mixture of people who have different skill levels, different reasons for being on the ride.
You can see their personal story on their face as they come across the finish line. It's not easy, and that kind of shared accomplishment is something that bonds everybody.
This sense of community with a ton of people that you don't know, some people that you get to know, and some people that you make some long-lasting friendships with.
When people ask, what'd you do this summer? All you have to do is say, ride the Rockies, and you've got instant cred.
Wow, I just went hundreds of miles on my own power on a bike.
30 years, wow. It's gone beyond just an event. It's become part of Colorado's culture.
It started out as an idea, and it became successful very, very rapidly.
When we were 4th, 5th, 6th years, we weren't sure it was going to last 10. Never thought it would last beyond that. Never thought we'd get 15, 20, 25. It's incredible we're going 30.
It became a part of the summer, and a part of the state, and a part of the Denver Post.
In 1985, I went with some friends on RAGBRAI, Des Moines Register's annual Great Bicycle Ride across Iowa. And I'd never done a big ride like that before. In fact, I don't think I'd ever ridden more than 20 miles before. And on RAGBRAI, there were a couple of close to 100-mile days. And I found that I really, really liked it. And I came back to Denver all excited about long-distance bicycle riding, and I went to our marketing department and said, if the Des Moines Register sponsors a bike ride across Iowa, we should do this in Colorado. And they decided they needed to get Connie Carpenter, who had just won an Olympic gold medal in the last Olympics, to galvanize people to sign up for this. We decided we'd have 1,500 riders, and I know that the marketing people didn't think we'd get that many. But the slots filled up in, I think, less than 3 days. I looked at myself as the sort of person I hoped to attract to a bike ride like Ride the Rockies. Somebody who was kind of athletic and interested in Colorado and wanted to see it from a different perspective, but not necessarily like pretending I was in the Coors Classic, which was a big bike race in Colorado at the time. The first year was a combination of jocks and people who just liked to ride their bikes. And it's sort of stayed that way ever since. When we arrived in Denver on the 4th of July. That was our last day of the first Ride the Rockies. They wanted the course to be harder. So the second year, it was a lot harder, like a lot. Like almost, I don't think there was a day under 80 miles that second year. So on the second year, we increased the number of participants from 1,500 to 2,000. And it filled up right away. But we had to go to a lottery because there were so many people applying, there was no way to accept everybody. It just wouldn't work.
We had a pretty small staff in the early years. You were multitasking back then, even before we knew what multitasking was. But we'd throw aid stations in vans and take them out and set them up, and then had to go out and start patrolling the route. Everybody was new to the event, including the director, and we're trying to figure our way out through Colorado roads and how you house that many people, how you feed them, how you can move water to them. So the early years, were tough. We had some tough times, but we had a good group of people that kind of got drawn into it.
My dad started at the very first Ride the Rockies, the very first day. They used to have tech support vans that would follow the riders and stop along the side of the road and fix people. And my dad would have grease up to his elbows, and he did that for a number of years with one of our mechanics, Doug Biddle. And Doug Biddle is still with the shop, and he still comes out to Ride the Rockies. So we've had a a very long-term involvement with Ride the Rockies.
I was a young boy, but I do have memories of you know, watching the coverage of Ride the Rockies on the news, and Larry Green with Channel 4 doing his feeds from the host communities.
So 30 years ago, here are some other different things. We had to remind people to wear helmets because not many people did then wear helmets for their bikes. Mountain bikes were just becoming a thing in 1986, and clipless pedals were still relatively new.
Leather chamois, toe clips, down tube shifters. The bikes, they were a little heavier, a little more clunky, but they got the job done. You know, coming out of the whole American Flyers and breaking away kind of movie, modern culture, kind of becoming aware of cycling, those 80s were a great time of exploring the bike and learning the bikes and kind of growing up.
You know, Ride the Rockies, it's more than a bicycle tour. It's an experience. And we've had our shared adventures over the years. From the blizzard of 2004 that resulted in a mass sag from Estes Park to Granby, to the forest fires of 2012 and 2013 that caused reroutes, and more recently the blizzard of 2014 where we shuttled nearly 1,500 people off of Bertha Pass down to Winter Park. And of course, who could forget 1992 when Willard Scott from the Today Show joined us in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Denver Post.
What goes on from town to town and the way the thing picks up and moves?
It's a big feat. It's moving a small city, you know, from one location to the next.
Well, we've got some baggage trucks that starts in the morning when people get out of their tents and put their bags in there. And so we have a small crew in town as the cyclists are leaving. And then we got everybody else out on the route. We'll have aid stations every 15 miles or so. We've got to have enough water there. We have porta potties there, and then we hope there's some vendors show up for some more solid food. And we'll have about 60 or so people on the route, and they'll get stretched out over like 60 miles as we just keep moving this thing forward. And we get near the end, it just collapses on itself.
So Tent City is really as much a part of Ride the Rockies as, you know, climbing a pass or the beer tent.
It just springs up every night, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tents. If you're back a ways, look at it, it looks like you cannot walk amongst it. But you get up close to it, there's plenty of room to walk there. And it's a little community into itself. I can't believe they get on their bike and they ride that many miles and then they jump in a tent for the day. They also have a bunch of people that stay in the gym. That's its own little cult as well. But the Tent City, those people are particularly hardy. You know, they're out there no matter what temperature or weather.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts, and luckily we have, you know, a really dedicated and great staff. And we have just this really loyal, passionate group of volunteers, and they are the ones that really make the wheels of Ride the Rockies turn.
I think the biggest piece really for me is it's all the same volunteers. I mean, you have people that have been there from day one. You feel like you're part of a family, so I think that's as much as anything, it's just the support that the riders feel while they're there.
The kind of supported ride that Ride the Rockies is, and the logistics that are provided and all of that, you can focus on the riding and the scenery and good times.
The support out there is neat because it's a big undertaking. It's called Ride the Rockies for a reason.
I drive around every year. I've got a big old tub of licorice in my car, and I got a big sack of peanut M&Ms. And when cyclists start flagging when I go up a hill late in the day, I'll pull over and give them some M&Ms or some licorice and help them get to the top of the pass. The people on the staff, it's like a big family, so that's a lot of it. And once a year we have a week-long family reunion with all these people we worked with for the last 29 years. Some of them all 29, and you know, we get some newbies every year. So. But it's a lot of fun, and it's a shared accomplishment. But we get a number of staff shirts every year, and it's always a big, they have a reveal day at one of our volunteer meetings ahead of time. It's a big thing when we see what we get to wear for the years. This is our Periwinkle shirt. Nice little staff shirt where they integrated a face in there. 2013 shirt, which I really liked, it integrated the Colorado symbol on it. To be late 80s, early 90s, we actually did a tie-dye year, which in the year we got these, we did our big reveal, and they didn't go over very well in our meeting. People, well, geez, Paul thinks we're all cows. But it turned out to be one of the funnest years we ever had with shirts, and girls got necklaces and earrings, and people had cow hats and cow costumes. The volunteer staff we wear proudly. We want people to know who we are when we're out there amongst all those 2,500 cyclists.
There's the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and a similar analogy can be applied to Ride the Rockies. It really takes so many good, qualified, and talented folks to make this run.
So I think a bike ride that has that many people who are willing to, ride in any kind of weather, any kind of conditions, just for the experience, and go through towns that very much depend upon recreational tourism for a good part of their income and their revenue. Ride the Rockies becomes sort of a linchpin for many of those towns over the course of the year. It's been that way now for a very long time, really since its inception, and there are towns that are very happy when they're chosen as part of the Ride the Rockies route.
It's one of the things I like best about Ride the Rockies is getting to see some communities and get to meet people in their communities and share with them the experience of bicycling.
Ride the Rockies put some of these communities on the map. They were these towns that very few people knew about.
Those communities go all out to make us feel at home.
The people that come out to help us, they're very, very proud of their town, and they're trying to, show you the beauty of their town and the good things about it and get you to come back.
They're happy to have you there. They recognize the value of the event coming to their town, the revenue that it generates.
In the 24-hour period, a host community can expect to see about $250,000 of revenue in retail, lodging, restaurants.
But also just the education of, these 2,000, 2,500 people coming into their community that may have not known anything about it. When they leave, they know about that area.
And there's been stories told where people have come and purchased property and built homes.
I've learned more about Colorado doing Ride the Rockies and seeing those places, and then the last couple of years Pedal the Plains. That's how you learn the state of Colorado more so than anything else you could do.
We like to feel welcomed, and we always felt welcomed even before we began to donate to these communities. But it just kind of cemented the partnership that the Denver Post and Ride the Rockies had by contributing to things that were important in those communities.
So there's a check every town we go to that goes to a local thing that will stay in that community.
Since 2001, Ride the Rockies has awarded over $500,000 to nearly 100 deserving nonprofits. Nonprofits that benefit low-income children and youth with a focus in recreation, education, literacy, and the arts.
And I think that sometimes that gets overlooked, the charity component of this whole thing, because we go into it maybe doing it for ourselves as a goal of, I want to finish this ride, I want to do all these miles, but then also knowing that the money that we put into it from the get-go goes back to these communities.
It's always fun to have my family out doing private support on the ride, and it's just nice to know that they're there and that I'm going to see them at the end of the day. And actually now, my kids are wanting to, when can I ride? Let's get a tandem, Mama.
I would really hope to see, like my daughters take an interest in it and kids their age. What would be really great would be for me, and I'm looking at my late 50s, to do Ride the Rockies with both of them. And I think that would be cool. And I know that there have been multi-generation families who've done Ride the Rockies.
I've ridden a Ride the Rockies with all three of my children and one of my granddaughters.
Spending a week on a bike with my dad is actually pretty fun, especially since you're in the back row of the tandem. Since you can't move the handlebars, I just rested on it the whole way while riding. It was so fun. I think both of us did a lot of work because my dad was pulling and then we were joking around and I was pushing, and it was pretty hard. But I was really doing the work.
The thing about Ride the Rockies is you can see people who are in their 7th or 8th decade on the planet, and you can see kids who aren't 10 yet, and they're on the same ride.
On the older end, we last year, one of our advisory board members, Bob Moore, wrote it, and I'm not going to share Bob's age, but he's got to be one of the senior-most folks tackling Ride the Rockies. To have that as a goal, that I'm going to keep riding well into my 70s, into my 80s, and be able to enjoy something like Ride the Rockies is a huge inspiration for me. I'm always impressed with the folks with different abilities, riding hand cycles or wheelchairs, being able to make it up the passes. There's a father-son couple I've met on a couple Ride the Rockies that ride on a tandem, and the son has cystic fibrosis, and they continually amaze me at the strength and perseverance and enjoyment they get out of it. You see the shouts of encouragement and the recollection and kind of sharing that happens at the aid stations as people kind of bond over what they just accomplished.
Some of the people say like, great job, yeah, do this next year.
One dad took a video of me to send back to his son to get him motivated to come out.
I would like for those sorts of stories to continue to be told or to emerge from Ride the Rockies, that the riders surprise each other and surprise in a good way the people that we meet.
That's a great question. Why has this event lasted for 30 years?
It's an opportunity for people to get away from the everyday. They just get to ride their bikes for 6-7 days straight and forget about their worries and life's routine and just enjoy Colorado.
It's about challenge. It's about people testing themselves. It's about friendships. It's about, it's this kind of whole long-term weaving of the fabric of the riders.
What a wonderful legacy for the participants, for the state, for the Denver Post, for the communities that have seen and been a part of this ride.
But as far as the future, I can't imagine not continuing with it because the opportunity that it affords to people who don't get that chance that often, or maybe ever.
Ride the Rockies, in my mind, is the premier citizens ride in the state, and it's just becoming more and more popular, harder and harder to get into, but there's a reason for that. It's not going away.
Oh, I think it'll get better and better all the time.
It's evolving, and that's the important thing with Ride the Rockies. As the sport evolves, as our state evolves, it's important that Ride the Rockies evolves. And
I hope that there's that younger generation coming in. We're seeing some of those kids out there now, and so I hope they get that cycling body and that desire to be out there in Colorado.
But gosh, Ride the Rockies could go on forever, and people are going to still keep coming back. You can't get sick of this ride.
It's something that everybody wants and everybody looks forward to, and after 30 years, it's got an exemplary reputation.
There's no other event like it.
So when I've gotten old, probably ridden Ride the Rockies 20 times.